57 years after the Al-Aqsa fire, the real danger is getting used to it. The fire that broke out at Al-Aqsa Mosque on August 21, 1969, was not an ordinary attack on one of the Islamic world's holiest sites. The flames that engulfed part of the mosque and severely damaged the historic pulpit, minbar, of Salahuddin Ayyubi quickly turned into a massive political and religious shock that reached far beyond borders. In fact, just a few weeks later, in September of the same year, the leaders of Muslim countries met at a historic summit in Rabat, Morocco, and laid the foundations of the Organization of Islamic Conference, which would later be named the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. For this very reason, the organization was not born as an ordinary bureaucratic project planned at a desk, but at an extraordinary political turning point where this attack on Al-Aqsa could unite the Islamic world under a single front and place the city of Quds at the very center of a collective struggle. An organization born from fire. The contradiction that should truly concern us today is that this organization, born out of fire, is facing a far more complex and serious reality than a single event more than half a century later. It involves military pressure, demographic engineering, legal maneuvers, endless incursions, and an overt war waged against the city's identity and historic status. A single fire in 1969 was enough to unite the Islamic world under one umbrella. Decades of far graver crises since have still failed to produce effective, tangible tools to protect Al-Quds and prevent unilateral actions on the ground. It is, of course, easy to look at the Organization of Islamic Cooperation and be impressed by its scale. 57 countries, a massive population, immense economic and energy resources, strategic locations, and vast diplomatic networks. Viewed from this perspective, it is perfectly reasonable to ask, why have all these resources not translated into real leverage on the Quds issue? But then, what can this organization realistically do? After all, an organization is not a supranational state above its member countries. It possesses no independent enforcement authority to dictate cutting bilateral ties, imposing sanctions, or leveraging economic cards. It is simply an intergovernmental body, meaning its power depends on how willing member states are to implement the decisions taken within their own domestic policies. This is one of the greatest paradoxes since 1969. The organization's collective weight on paper is immense, yet it lacks a unified mandate to project that weight onto the ground. Member states' governance models, security concerns, foreign policies, and economic interests diverge sharply. The Palestinian cause is a vital strategic priority for some, while others place internal stability, border security, or economic interests above all. Meanwhile, it may be unfair to dismiss the organization with the easy line that it does nothing. It adopts resolutions, issues statements, convenes extraordinary summits, raises its voice internationally, and keeps the city of Quds on the agenda. Yet does any of this ever transcend political posturing into concrete action with real-world consequences? In 1969, that fire was instantly turned into an urgent international crisis that even led the UN Security Council to adopt Resolution 271 on the protection of holy sites. Today, international resolutions regarding Al-Quds are reduced to items added to endless archive lists, while the situation on the ground deteriorates further by the day. This is precisely where the diplomatic crisis itself surfaces. If there is no political will to defend international legitimacy, those resolutions remain on paper. Likewise, if violating a resolution carries no political, economic, or legal cost, no one takes it seriously. The most painful aspect is not how many times the organization convenes, but how political thinking across the Islamic world perceives the city of Quds. When Al-Quds becomes a file opened only for emergency meetings during major crises and promptly shelved once tensions ease. What is happening is not long-term policy making, but crisis management to save the day. Today's dilemma: getting used to it. Perhaps the most alarming outcome of decades is that whatever was once considered a red line has become an ordinary daily occurrence through sheer repetition. The massive shockwave of the 1969 fire stemmed from its unprecedented nature. The primary danger today is that events pile up until they no longer provoke even a sense of political shock. The figures clearly demonstrate this desensitization. The number of settler incursions into the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound rose from roughly 35,000 in 2021 to over 65,000 in 2025. That same year, the Palestinian Ministry of Awqaf recorded 280 separate incursions into the mosque accompanied by security forces, while the call to prayer was barred 769 times at the Ibrahimi Mosque in Hebron. When raids on the mosque become routine news items, when obstructions at the gates are taken for granted, and when gradual steps are taken against Al-Quds' residents and the areas surrounding holy sites, this state of getting used to it turns into a political weapon, because every repeated act that incurs no cost eventually becomes accepted as the new normal. The year 1969 proved that even a single event in the city of Quds could mobilize the world and bring Islamic nations together under a shared institutional umbrella. Over time, however, the dynamic shifted. The question is no longer who set fire to the mosque, but a much deeper one. Who can protect its future? The city of Quds does not need new speeches proclaiming how critical the situation is, for everyone is already aware of its gravity. What is needed is a determined political strategy that imposes concrete costs on those attempting to alter the reality on the ground while providing genuine protection to those striving to defend it. Perhaps the most painful contradiction on the anniversary of the fire is that the organization born from a spark at Al-Aqsa is, more than half a century later, still searching for a way to transform that fire from a nostalgic annual commemoration into a sustainable political will. The true test 1969 left us is not in remembering how the fire started that day, but in asking what lessons we have drawn from it and what we are doing to prevent that holy site from being transformed before our very eyes, while we merely alter the wording of our condemnation statements.